Okay, I think we can get started then. So, hello everyone, and welcome to the third and final webinar in the MeMAD webinar series, which is called Industrializing Media Production, a Producer's Perspective. So, in today's webinar, we will be presenting the results of the MeMAD project in the context of facilitating audiovisual content production, and particularly the use of AI technologies, and also with a focus on real-life use cases. So some practical notes to start it off. So first of all, this event is closed captioned, and you can turn on the closed captioning by clicking the CC button in the bottom bar of the Zoom client. We are recording this event, and we will make it available for later viewing, subtitle on the MeMAD web pages. And we'd also like some interactivity with you in the audience. So in the last segment of the webinar, you'll have the possibility to comment and raise questions. And you can do so either in text or through the chat or with voice. So using the raise hand feature and wait for me to call on you to speak. So a few words about today's program. So first of all, my name is Mikael Stornbom. I work as a business director in Linksoft, which is one of the companies in the MeMAD project. And in the project, I work primarily with dissemination and business development activities. After my short introduction here, you'll hear from our keynote speaker, Matthieu Parmentier. And after that, we will present a bit more of the MeMAD projects and the outcomes of the MeMAD project with two very interesting case studies there. And finally, then we'll leave room for audience participation and discussion. So at this point, I would like to hand over to our keynote speaker.
Let's go. So I will just start with a video, a short video of 1 minute. I would like to share with you. That will be maybe the better support for the rest of the discussion. Just raise the hand if you don't listen to the sound, but it's only music.
Bienvenue si vous nous rejoignez pour cette soirée exceptionnelle de débat sur France 3.
Aujourd'hui, nous commençons par l'Anchichonnier.
Nous nous intéressons donc à Limoges.
Après Colmar, la Sacalais, la santé, le logement, l'emploi, l'écologie.
On va parler de la tranquillité, de la sécurité des Vaudois. Pour révolutionner aussi les transports du quotidien.
Priorité, c'est la question du changement climatique.
So, yeah, did you catch the video?
Yes, that worked fine. Thank you.
That worked fine. Okay, great. With no rehearsal, so sometimes it could be strange. So let me now show you a few more information about this and just share my little behind the scene aspect of it. So the goal of this work was to advertise the benefits of AI for helping production and especially helping journalists. So here all the interest we have in our organization at France Television, where there is no AI nowhere. There is a little bit of AI when we try to automatically catch the name of the company where they send us some invoices, but that's the only AI that we're here at France Television a few months ago. And we started with this project I just showed you a big advertisement campaign in order to grab some more interest from the journalists, which is one of the biggest population of workers that continuously create some content at France TV. So for sure, we were not in position to push the use of AI and massive data extraction by replacing the job of anyone. So that's why we focused on this use case, where we have 200 debates all around the country in the same weeks, so that nobody is able to watch all these debates at the same time and to make some insights from these analyses. So that was a very good use case for AI to help journalists. And because it was important also to show all the nice aspects of data and AI project, we started with this project to underline the microservice approach, which is very easy for jumping from a typical use case to another one and so on, with a constant reuse of what we can develop on each project as a new aspect. So this is where we pushed behind the curtain the use of microservice platform. So this is an open source platform we co-developed at France TV. And with this, we have created some simple microservice for face recognition, OCR, and recollection of data in order to identify people. And this is also where we push microservice with external very good tools, such as the French speech-to-text from Vocapia and the transcript editor proposed by Limecraft that we intensively use for this use case. And after that, because it was a specific use case with journalists involved in a regional election, a local election, we had to deal with a proper way to classify the different information. And this is where we developed a complete agnostic NLP, but specialized to look at this local political debate. So NLP, this is the natural language processing. So we proceed by all the microservice concerning the classification of terms, like the vectorization of terms to check all the data that belongs to the same topics. And then we use this automatic AI classification to make a human exhaustive classification of the terms. And this is how we can then jump from a big amount of data to a big amount of classified data for each debate. And this is where then we could call from the data journalist of France Television to work with this information, to be able to draw some heat map and bring some more insight of these debates around the country. So I can show you a few examples of difference into the public interest regarding the different regions of the country. And we also had some very strange topics that were really raised in some part of the countries where there was completely absent from others, and so on and so on. So what we could say as a general conclusion for this use case is the fact that today it's very important to classify the information we can grab from speech-to-text, facial analysis, video analysis, like object detection, monument detection, shot classification, and so on. But it's very, very important to make to give some meanings to all this. And for this, we still have to create a user interface which is able to adapt the treatment of our collection of metadata in relationship with the topic we are analyzing. So for this use case, it was regional election, but we have to change this kind of tool for all the use cases we have. So this is why we are actually creating a specific interface to shape the data organization of each topic. And this is also now the range for us to refine our process of natural language processing to be able to classify a topic in multiple categories. And now, because we are dealing with live feeds and not only files, that's the new aspect of this platform, is the fact that we can also give some insights all over the time. So we have this addition of the timescale functions for this data analysis. And I've just sent you that now we were also working with the process of all this data in real time. This was the good outcome from this very first project. So 1 year ago, this project was started 1 year ago. It was a big advertisement for the benefit of data and AI at France Television for journalists and data journalists. And now we are 1 year after. And what I could tell you is that this kind of data visualization is able to be asked for any kind of need of the journalist. And in the meantime, we have now industrialized this automatic metadata extraction within the daily tool of the journalist. So at France Television, this is the DALET interface, and this is where we are today. I hope this was sufficiently clear. I really prepared that in a hurry, but I'm really open for a few questions if we have some time for that.
Yes, please. If anyone has any questions for Matthieu at this stage, please ask at this juncture. I see that there's a. Do my voice sound okay now? There seems to be an echo there. So, but here's a question for you, Matthieu. What is the reception of the data journalism?
At the beginning, it was very impossible to catch them correctly because of the COVID, which was very, very important for them to become very important in the newsroom. Because before this, at France Television, the data journalist was not really always very well treated. It was just a sort of sub-journalist in terms of, classification of the importance of journalism in the newsroom. But with the COVID, it was very important for them to be involved in the generation of new way to show and explain the news. So that's why this results for the election was very welcome at the top management level, because when we came with this outcome, the first phase of the COVID was just behind. So the only feedback we had from the data journalists is that they wanted to have the raw data from out of the system, which is very, very easy with the solution I showed you. This is Kibana, so it's very plugged into the raw data. But what was also important for them is to be able to have a sort of interface between their tool, which are more design tool, to design very beautiful graphics and histograms, and the raw data. So what we think today very important to have these data better available for data journalists is maybe to create the right interface, to create the right tool for them to assist them into the creation of these graphics. Because I don't know how it is in other organizations, but mostly they are working with an Excel sheet on one side and a beautiful graphical system on the other, but then it takes a lot of time to make some maybe simple graphics. So here we give them a lot of data, very well classified, but it's still a long time for them to process that and to turn it into a very beautiful graphic. So I think there are some very new tools which are rising on the market, something like a sort of Google Doc approach for data journalists, which help them creating beautiful data with massive data easily and quickly.
Okay, and here's another question for you. Are use cases contemplated for end user application of the results of analysis?
No, not this one. This one was the demo aspect of it. So when now we use this data output to build some really published web article, this is always taken from the same data, but yes, rebuild, reprocessed with a really a most beautiful chart and graphical aspect of it. So this slides I showed you is directly from the tool, the Kibana tool, the free tool, which is very interesting to quickly design the kind of result that could be showed. But after that, if you want to have something in relation with a chart of the graphical aspect on screen, then you have to just consider the data and rebuild everything on a publishing tool.
Okay. Any other questions for Matthieu at this juncture? If not, then I would like to thank you, Matthieu, for stepping in as our keynote speaker on very short notice. So it was great that you could make it here today.
Thank you very much.
And then I would like to hand over to Martin Verwest, who is the CEO of Linecraft, who will then be presenting the MeMAD project and the findings there. Over to you, Martin.
Thank you, Michael, and thanks again for Matthieu for stepping in the really big shoes of Sandy McIntyre, the VP of Innovation of the Associated Press, who was committed to deliver a speech as well, also in a news context. These guys are also very keen on exploring what can be done with artificial intelligence. I think we're running slightly out of time, so we'll have this up to speed. My colleague Dieter was kind enough to lend me his slides presented at the Production Technology Seminar of EBU just a couple of weeks ago, where he presented the key findings of the MeMAD project when it comes to using it in production processes. The title of this webinar is Industrializing Media Production, and as we will discuss in a couple of minutes, we're at the edge of applicable solutions in real life. So MeMAD, just to wrap up really quickly, is an R&D project with these partners in the consortium, and it is all about creating tools for content production, media and entertainment production, archive, and helping improving productivity and efficiency. It's intended to bring artificial intelligence to life because there is truckloads of microservices, as Matthieu mentioned it, available on the market, specialized players like Vocapia and Speechmatics, wholesale providers like Google, Amazon, and Microsoft, more than you can test. There has been amazing steps taken in improving accuracy of point solutions like automatic speech recognition, machine translation, and facial detection. But we found there's still a huge gap between point solutions available on the market and something which is usable for an editor or a producer. So in MeMAD, we've asked ourselves the question how we can turn this into something usable, combine tools, how should a user interface look like, and we specifically put our bets on mixing state-of-the-art technology, as also provided by universities and fundamental researchers, with usability experts answering the question, what can we do with all this artificial intelligence? So on the left-hand side, the short list of AI microservices which has been on the drawing board, and on the right-hand side, an indication where we've experimented with multimodal fusion, or smartly combining tools on the left-hand side, face recognition, voice recognition, to detect people, and more down to earth, really combining human and artificial intelligence, because it's obvious, almost an open door, that when you can combine best of both worlds, you have something which is more efficient than when executed by a manual process, and more accurate than when done by machine. So we've extended prior art on subtitles and localization of content. This is, I would say, in the state of making a business case. There is lots of technologies available. There is several alternatives. Here's where we can negotiate about what should be in the pipeline and what value it will bring. In MeMAD, we've quantified these benefits, and then later on we will look at reusing archive material, and showing that with some real cases by KRO and CRV and the Associated Press. So when it comes to subtitling and localization, and I see there are a couple of subtitle experts in the audience out there, the key question is, what strategy works best? Should you first of all translate the transcript and cut the translation in subtitles for localization purposes, or should you first cut in subtitles and then translate fragment per fragment? Another more interesting and philosophical question with all this automation: how does it affect and impact the work of a professional subtitler, and which areas are left for improvement, whether or not academic or applied research? So in MeMAD, we've done some objective testing of improvements measured in time. So we've not looked at counting word error rates and evaluating diarization and interpunction accuracy. We've pulled up our chrono, and we've measured efficiency improvements when subtitling from scratch compared to having machine translation give a first shot and then do manual post-editing afterwards. And then depending on the pipeline and the specific setup, whether you translate entire documents or sentence level machine translation, there are 30 to 35% improvements in time spent on the overall process. However, there's always a however, isn't it? When we did a subjective analysis of how professional subtitlers felt, what they experienced as pleasant and what they found really annoying, then obviously on the balance with the profit in time, what is left for the professional subtitler is a really boring job of counting frames and improving the spotting. And notably, the correction of the timing or correction of poorly spotted in and out points was in the first release of the prototype was perceived as the biggest hurdle to adoption. So in a intermediary release, we did a lot of work on the spotting, and by concentrating here on, we've improved it, making it more pleasant than before. And in the second release, we did another experiment, thereby comparing subtitling based on the raw output of automatic speech recognition with translating subtitles based on an existing subtitle template. And this is very convincing. This is interesting. The biggest source of errors comes from the automatic speech recognition. And those errors propagate, they tend to escalate. If you start from poorly recognized audio, you put machine translation on top, it becomes worse and really difficult, really annoying to do the post-editing. In the event the subtitle operator can start from an existing subtitle template, which is usually very succinct and compact, then machine translation gives a result which is subjectively perceived as very helpful. So in summary, when it comes to evaluating artificial intelligence for subtitling and localization purposes, the key conclusion on top is obviously, which is good, computer-assisted translation renders your process more efficient, it's faster, but the remainder of the work is considered utterly boring, and there is opportunity for improvement. It's better when the subtitler can start from an existing subtitle template. Then the subjective improvement is much better. In general, when ASR is part of the pipeline, when automatic speech recognition is part of the pipeline, despite incredible improvements over the last 12 months in terms of accuracy, interpunction, speaker segmentation, it is still the main showstopper. I'm not sure if the technologies developed by expert companies like Vocapia and Speechmatics have still opportunity for improvement. What we've experienced lately is that by using specialized vocabularies, so depending on the context, when we're in Formula One, including lists of the venues and the racers, and when we're in soccer, to include list of football players, that improves the accuracy of the recognition a lot, and has a disproportionately positive effect on the post-editing time. But this is recent developments. When it comes to using artificial intelligence more in the, can I say, upstream, in the shot listing and editing environments, it becomes more fluffy, where we need to find the benefits. First of all, MeMAD delivered amazing results when using search indices in combination with machine translation technology. So we've cracked the challenge of multilinguality in your archive, using words in a particular language and retrieve content which is indexed using another language. And also here we did a quantitative approach with a specific set of use cases and searches, where we deliberately took a list of use cases and processes which the user were familiar with, so they could comment a way of managing the expectations. They could compare it with the tools they were currently using. And main feedback, roughly, or to cut through the chase, is that in the initial release, where metadata was shown in lists and taken into account that artificial intelligence effectively gives back a lot more metadata than whatever you could produce by hand being an archivist. So the conventional media asset management solutions for showing metadata made it very hard to find benefit. And we concluded somewhere in the middle of the project that we needed a different user interface to show those metadata properly. And when we did a second iteration of the measurement of the perceived benefits, then first of all, in the meantime, we've worked a lot on improving this accuracy of the speech recognition and the face recognition accuracy. So the main observations were that object tracking and face recognition is particularly useful when there is no dialogue. In other words, a lot of the searches or retrievals are coming from the audio domain. A lot of meaning and a lot of results are triggered by words in the dialogue. But when there is no dialogue available, the visual aspect is helpful. Something we anticipated is that AI returns a lot, not only in volume. There is sometimes an arguable signal-to-noise ratio, specifically when models are not properly trained. Sometimes the amount of garbage is larger than the meaningful results, which hampers the reusability of those of the assets we're looking for. So the key recommendation there was, in order to make all these AI services point solutions usable, we need a way of reconciling to normalize all those data into a single set of numbers. And also to find a way to combine human and artificial intelligence to curate the results, making them more usable. And one of the key deliverables of MeMAD is this, appeals to the last observation or recommendation. It's a user interface in which the different dimensions, faces, voices, labels, places are normalized, put on timecode, and making that available for post-editing. So exactly as was the case with subtitles, if there is a conclusion to not leave AI unattended, to make sure AI-produced results need to be post-edited, let's make it comfortable for the person that has to do this post-editing in a similar user interface. And then as a last point, we've also done experiments with the user base, whereby the results of artificial intelligence were handed off to the edit suite, hoping that editors would also find benefit from the available metadata. But to make it simple, this is in general not the case, partially because Avid Media Composer and Adobe Premiere can't cope with this overload of available data, especially not if there is a poor signal-to-noise ratio. So we need to rethink the process prior to transferring metadata and injecting it into the edit suite. In order to be a real improvement, we need to clean those data and make sure they are usable for the editor. So before we go to two practical use cases of these technologies, just to wrap up, in the area of subtitling, we are at the point that it is possible to make a business case, given that you have quite clean audio, so no computer animated graphics with synthetic audio, but clean audio, not too much crosstalk, preferably without the soundtrack. If you combine that with the latest generation of speech recognition, preferably with custom dictionaries, it does a reasonably good job. And when you can start from existing subtitles and existing subtitle template, then you can also benefit from machine translation if properly implemented in the user interface. When it comes to using artificial intelligence to help in the shot listing, as we will see in a minute, this starts getting feasible. When looking at automated editing, AI-based editing, there are still some steps to take. Now, let's first have a look at the Associated Press case, which was using the technologies developed and explored in MeMAD and then presented as a proof of concept for an IBC showcase. And it's the ambition of the Associated Press processing on an average 30,000 hours of original footage on a yearly basis to go as far as possible in automatically describing what's in the shots. And when looking for Mr. Macron, it's easy enough to use facial recognition. It starts getting to speech-to-text works fine. Facial recognition is a simple point algorithm that can be easily trained as well. It starts getting more interesting when you look for gestures like walking or coming down from steps or shaking hands. And if we take these subclips with the shaken hands detector and we play them out back to back, note that the in and out points are not just random, but so not only it has detected the gesture, it's also looking for the most convenient in and out points around it, preparing automatic shot listing. So we're not yet in the edit suite, but we're taking steps towards better selection of content fragments suitable or for the edit. Let's go back to the complete overview. There we go. And then assuming these such a cut list is transferred to Adobe Premiere or Avid Media Composer. Jumping a bit further. There we go. It's probably hard to read, but It effectively results in a description of the shot on the right-hand side where the artificial intelligence combines these sources saying, this is Mr. Donald Trump in his capacity of United States President, or former United States President, I should say, Shinzo Abe, Prime Minister, in discussion, and all that data is shown as markers on a data track in Adobe Premiere. So this, just to give you an overview of where we got with the state of the art, and as we explained earlier, this needs like a refinery to filter, better reconcile these data, making sure that only, or as close as possible to the only relevant data, are displayed in the edit suite. Then KRO and CRV took it one step further. They effectively raised the question, to what extent is it currently possible to automate the editing process based on what we've seen to date. So they labeled it Plus Eddy, their new editor. It's completely artificially intelligent. And they've asked the question to what extent it can be trained to then cut a given list of clips into an edited clip that looks as if edited by a professional editor. So quite controversial. And then it also began with shot listing, using speech recognition, using optical character recognition. Interestingly, not only to detect concepts like poverty in Dutch on the right-hand side, but also to get an understanding of non-domestic content. So here's a German lady speaking on the left-hand side. It's subtitled with open captions. Optical character recognition makes that, indexes that content as well. Then we experimented with a deep captioning system from Mobius Labs. They claimed they could detect higher level concepts like poverty, climate change. But the main result in that last area was it was really hard to get consistent results. I mean, it was easy to retrieve the frames that had been used for training the engine, but when you picked random frames, the recognition rate was too low to be used in production. But the more interesting question is, what's the strategy to have this automatically edited? So Valossa this time was used to aggregate all the available data coming from different sources. Added with that, Valossa detects then the concepts like demonstration, interview, similar to the gesture detection we've discussed earlier. They add emotional tonality, using specific words and pitch, etc. And a really important step is to create a blacklist of material fragments that should not be used in the edit. For example, KRO and CRV wanted to get rid of studio content, which is usually an introduction. And by looking at visual elements, clothing, etc., they could identify, and then remove the studio fragments. And then ended up with a long list that was iteratively cut, taken into account the desired duration of the clip. And let's have a quick look at the outcome of Eddy Plus, the automatic editor. It's usually taking logical in and out points. The majority of the content is in Dutch. but let's say in 20–30% of the cases, the discovered or proposed in and out points are valid for a machine, completely unusable to be considered a real edit. So the main conclusion here being, this is in the best case scenario good enough as a rough cut edit, as a proposed edit, but this can't go out and can't be published on social media without being post-edited by a human editor that can check the overall consistency. With that being said, I think the final judgment would be good enough for, I would say, straightforward processes like speech transcription, cut down into subtitles. That becomes feasible and useful to make a business case. Making a shot list and preparing a rough cut edit, that can be done, but for the time being, the editor will play a critical role in fine-tuning the results. So we will need integrations with Premiere and Media Composer. Whereas we expect that companies like, perhaps specialized companies like Velossa, but we know that IBM Watson and other companies are probably working as well on automating trailers. That's not to say automating editing processes. So mixed conclusions. With that, Michael, I'm handing back to you.
Thank you, Martin. So I think we have a couple of minutes then for discussion and audience participation. And so if you have any questions or comments that you want to raise, then please use the chat functionality, or you can also use the raise hand function if you want to comment using your voice. I will relay here that you did a great presentation, Martin. Here's the greeting from an audience member here.
Question for the audience. I'm not sure if we can use a poll, but we're not with hundreds of attendants. How does the audience believe automatic editing is on your radar in the coming 12 to 24 months? Would you consider it if it were made available by technology suppliers, or wouldn't you take it into consideration?
So feel free to comment in the chat. So one comment here: we're working on auto editing for summaries, key moments, and content adaptive streams.
Yeah. Online, yeah. One case we can not talk about explicitly, but for another public service broadcaster in Europe, we are working on a mixed use case, something in between a shot list and an automatic edit. It's about populating a live blog on a news website. So imagine there is live footage coming in on soccer or on Formula One. It's been reported in a radio studio with live radio. And then AI will cater automatic cuts, judging that only clips between 1 and 2 minutes are suitable fragments to be published. looking at the concepts, looking for proper in and out points, and automatically publishing that on the live blog as fast as possible. It's all about speed there. My expectation would be that rather than to go for the full Monty and to try to achieve fully automated edit, which is going to be disappointing, I think we will see mixed scenarios and hybrid cases in between. And I see a few comments coming in. Key moments, summaries, teaser. I think that's likely to happen in there.
Yes, and then another question here. I'm a subtitler. Any view on when I'd be able to input terminology lists for improved ASR? I'm quite convinced this could be really helpful with collaborative customers, in parentheses there.
That's a question by Mark Baylis. Well, I confirm this is already possible. It's available in beta, but it is possible. We are testing it, even with a couple of the attendants in the call here. So, Mark, we will reach out to you and we will check how we can make it available for your convenience.
And another comment here, AI editing in sports, that's going to happen in 5 years.
Okay. We will take note of this comment and we will discreetly publish it when it will be available. I don't think it will take 5 more years. At least not for the in-between use cases.
Any other comments or questions? A comment on football there, no, within 5 years.
Yeah.
Another comment there, so definitely in Paris 2024, Olympic sports AI.
Okay, I think, Michael, we should try to copy some of these judgments for our memoirs in the MeMAD final conclusions and make sure we can point back to them in due course.
Yes, I think it will be interesting to see by 2024 if indeed these predictions came to pass. Another comment here, great presentation, thanks. Another comment here, I think AI best as a force multiplier.
Not sure what Todd means by force multiplier. Power tools for humans. I think that that's yeah, quite in line with the suggestion in the Dieter's presentation. Make sure to combine the best of artificial intelligence with the best human intelligence to have to make more content faster, really have a better result in a shorter time frame.
Thank you. It's a very interesting field of research. A commenter here. Thank you for sharing your experiences. And I think we have one more question coming here, and maybe that will be the final question before we put the webinar to close here. So I sometimes have bilingual inputs.
Aha. Yeah, that is a very interesting question.
And the question here, is there bilingual speech recognition?
Most of the attendants live in Europe, so we know the drill. And some countries like Finland, Switzerland, Belgium have several official languages. And as a producer, we have to deal with multilingual audio. Miko here in the audience will confirm that cracking the challenge of detecting the language just based on the audio is a very interesting but incredibly hard topic. We are working on it. MeMAD has delivered some prototype results. Please stay tuned. Have a look at memad.eu website where the deliverables will be published, because this is one of the areas where we've been working on lately.
Yes, indeed. And another MeMAD member here confirms indeed that language identification for speech is in the works. So stay tuned. So one final comment here. So great presentations and very interesting research on relevant use cases for broadcasters. Thank you. So I think that would be a good note to start closing the webinar. So first of all, thank you very much to Matthieu Parmentier for giving a very interesting keynote on very short notice. And thank you, Martin, for presenting the results and the case studies. Very, very interesting. And I think on that note, we can probably start ending the webinar. So this webinar has been recorded, and the previous two webinars in the series on accessibility and from a research perspective have also been recorded and will be made available on the MeMAD website. And that is indeed memad.eu. So keep an eye on that if you want to see the webinars there and to see all of our other results there. So
thank you, Michael.
Yes, so thank you, everybody, and have a good day or evening, depending on your time zone. But thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye-bye.